right, guys, I promised you today we would talk about some movies, stuff you can watch while you are in quarantine. And these are not going to be deep reviews. They're not going to be really long reviews. We're not going to get, into a whole lot of the minutia of these movies. These are going to be, short little things. We'll talk about them for a few minutes, talk about why you should watch them. These are small, short videos for the quarantine. These are quarantinis. Okay, no one broke down the door and ran in here, so I liked it. Quarantinis, because they're short reviews for the quarantine. Anyway, today, some stuff we're going to talk about. I tried to find stuff that you can easily stream or order online. Try not to get anything too extremely obscure. The first one you're going to be like, okay, that seems really obscure, but I will explain. It's one that you can easily get a hold of. But before we get into those, I do want to throw out a plug. If you are in, I believe, the UK, if you're in Ireland, if you're in, I think, France, Germany, you can stream on Amazon Millennium After the Millennium. This is the documentary about Chris Carter's other TV show besides the X-Files, the other show that took the paranormal seriously. This one much deeper, much darker. Lance Henriksen. This, full disclosure, yes, I was involved in the website that eventually gave rise to this documentary. They did thank me in the credits in this. I did do some of the bonus stuff that you can find in here. In fact, if you watch through the credits are so nice, they even thanked me twice. So, yes, little plug there. But you can stream that for free, I believe, on Amazon in those countries. They're still working out whatever deal in the U.S. because I think they're trying to work on an actual U.S. distributor to try to get it in stores, and so they need a U.S. distributor for whatever. Anyway, but, of course, you can also order it if you want to go online and order it from places on DVD and Blu-ray. It is available. Just a plug for a plug. Not sponsored. They didn't pay anything. This isn't one of those type of deals. Just wanted to throw that out there because it is good. Like, I really enjoy it. This is, I was a huge fan of the show. I am still a huge fan of the show. I do like to watch the show quite often. Again, that's something else you can watch. Although maybe not the end of season 2 right now. Might not be the best thing to focus in on at the moment. But anyway, regardless. Speaking of being thanked in the credits, does anybody here know anything about, before we get into everything, just real quick, does anybody know anything about IMDb, the Internet Movie Database? I helped with the creation of a short film called The Curious Case of the Murder That Wasn't. And so to thank me, they set up an IMDb page for me, and I was like, cool. So now I have an official IMDb page. So I went in and I thought, I can complete some of this stuff. I know the date I was born. I know my full name. I know the stuff I've done. And I've had thanks in other movies and credits I was credited as a producer, executive producer on something and whatever. And so I thought, I'll just link to this stuff. It'd be super easy. And then IMDb is not super easy to update with some of this stuff. And it's like, I tried to go in and just like, well, here's my actual birth date. And they were like, we need a link to some place that actually says it. And it's like, but it's me. And they're like, well, we need someone who, we need some website that knows him. And I'm like, but I know him because he is me. And it's weird. And they're like, oh, so you're the person, this is your credits. Well, then you need IMDb Pro where you can find an agent and you can get bookings and you can get press and blah, blah. It's like, I'm not trying to get booked. I just thought, hey, like, this is neat. I have an IMDb page. It'd be neat to put some stuff on it. They like reject stuff because it's like, well, if you don't have a website that says what Dirt's birthday is, how do you know what Dirt's birthday is? And it's like, because that's scary thing too is that I'm actually Dirt 2. There's another guy named Dirt. Found out from had one credit in a movie, like one of those car chase movies in like the 70s or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I was like, there's another dude, man. So anyway, if anyone knows anything about IMDb, feel free to look it up on there if you can figure out how to do anything with it, or if you know anything about IMDb and you can get in there and make some of those changes and stuff. Maybe because I'm new, because I just signed up for an account so I could go in and try to do the stuff, and it freaked out on me, so I don't know what's going on. But anyway, back to the actual videos we're going to talk about today. Now, this first one is one, like I said, some people are going to think it's kind of obscure, but it's a movie that I actually love. This is a movie that I watched as a kid growing up. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and it's one that you can actually find streaming online pretty easily. This is a movie called Trancers. Trancers is one Blu-ray. They also have it on DVD. You can find out there. The sequel, number 2, I also have on Blu-ray. I also have this box set, which is 1, 2, and 3 on DVD that you can find on here. Trancers 1, Trancers 2, Trancers 3. There's also this is volume 1, you can see, because there's a 4, 5, and 6. Trancers is, it's one of these where it's good fun. I'll put it that way. It's good fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's not necessarily the best crafted film, and it's not necessarily the greatest franchise of all time, but it's a lot of fun. You can see it's a sci-fi. It's a low-budget sci-fi from the mid-'80s. The original one here, what is this? I don't even know what it says in here. 84, maybe? And this actually... Full Moon Entertainment, if you're familiar with the direct-to-VHS boom of the mid-'80s, you'll know Full Moon Entertainment put out a lot of movies: Doll Man, Demonic Toys, Evil Bong, Puppet Master, that type of stuff. Started as Empire through, I believe it was Albert Band, who was the father, and then Charles Band, the son, came in, created Full Moon Entertainment. You can see here in the clip, Helen Hunt is in this. She's the girlfriend. So basically, here's how it works. In the future, there's a guy named Whistler. Oh, I just touched my eyeball, didn't I? You're not supposed to do that with coronavirus. Uh-oh. I may have just made myself sick with my own illness. Anyway, sometime in the future, this guy named Whistler, he has like this cult where he turns people into like these zombie things. And Jack Death is our intrepid hero. And Jack Death, D-E-T-H, Death, he's going around tracking down these trancers and, killing them, disposing of them, whatever, basically. Whistler goes back in time to the 20th century, and he is killing the ancestors of the people who are in charge of Angel City, is what they call it, in the future, Los Angeles, as it remains in the future, because most of it's underwater because of earthquakes and flooding and whatever catastrophes. And the way to travel back in time is to actually travel down your bloodline through your ancestors. So Jack doesn't actually travel himself back in time. His body stays in the future, and he appears in the body of his ancestor, Paul, who just happens to be his own spitting image, but without all the scars and the gnarly stuff that you see on Jack in the future. It's funny because there's stuff where his captain, McNulty, this grizzled old, veteran guy, McNulty travels back in time, and he appears in the body of like a 14-year-old girl. So he's like yelling at him, swearing at him, smoking cigars, whatever, and it's this young girl. It's some fun that they throw in there like that. He's got neat little gadgets. He's got a stop time watch where he hits the button and he gets what's called a long second, where it's 1 second of time, but to him it stretches out to 7 seconds, so he can duck out of the way, he can run, whatever. And they play with it a little loosely. It's not exactly 1 to 7 perfectly, that type of thing. But some sci-fi fun in there. And it plays with time travel the way it used to be in a lot of science fiction before all the eggheads and the science, the physicists and whatever got involved in a lot of it. So it's basically, you walk up to somebody's ancestor, you blow them away, and then in the future they're sitting around talking, and all of a sudden the person disappears, and they're like, what happened to him? He's gone. Oh no, they must have killed his ancestor, because he doesn't exist here anymore, and you just have to go on without him. So it's that type of time travel, messing with time type of thing. It's not the way we think of it now, where you go back in time, you kill somebody, and the entire history of everything changes. So they play with it more in that sort of pulp sci-fi kind of way. It's fun. Again, like I said, it's good fun. Not always necessarily the best crafted movie that you're going to see on TV. And like in this scene right here, where he's driving Tim Thomerson, he's doing a lot of this back and forth on the wheel, where he would totally be swerving on the road, but he's obviously a car in a flatbed truck. And Tim Thomerson is just a jewel in these films. He plays this so well. He's one of these guys. He's naturally funny, kind of like Leslie Nielsen. Leslie Nielsen in a lot of his early movies was a very straight-laced, very had a very mean, hard demeanor. Very stoic. Almost, and they found out later that this guy had a great sense of humor, could do goofy, and ended up doing a lot of that stuff. Tim Thomerson is a guy he did a lot of work as a stand-up comedian. He could do a lot of funny stuff. He was a bit player a lot on sitcoms in the 80s. You'd see him like appear on Empty Nest or something as one of the guys in the doctor's office that would come in and crack jokes in an episode, that kind of stuff. But here he's playing it very very hard, very straight-laced, and he really sells it. And I think his commitment to as goofy and as weird as this time travel stuff is, and some of the stuff that they do here, as crazy as it may seem, he plays it hardcore. He is dedicated 100% to the role, and I think that's what makes it so incredible. So yeah, Trancers, that for me, that's going to be my first pick. This is one of those, and if you want to get into the whole series, if you want to get 1, 2, and 3, I do like 1, 2, and 3 a lot. 4, 5, and 6 is where it starts to get a little off the rails, even for a series like this, where I think he ends up in like an alternate dimension. And they're still fun, if you're gonna, obviously you're trapped, you got time to kill, there's stuff to do. It is kind of fun to sit with some friends, if you've got a couple cases of beer or something, and you're sitting around watching stuff, maybe cooking out, then it's some fun stuff to keep the night rolling. But I would suggest investing more on 1, 2, and 3 than 4, 5, and 6, but to each his own. All right, now the next one. Oh, and I almost forgot. You may say, okay, well, I don't have a Blu-ray, I don't have the DVD. I'm going to have to go online. I'm going to have to hunt this down. I'm going to have to shop. How am I going to get this thing? I'm supposed to be sequestered in my home. I'm quarantined. Where do I get this movie? Actually, Full Moon Entertainment has a channel on Amazon. They also have a Roku channel, so you can go onto your Roku and download the Full Moon channel. You can pay like $7.99 a month or whatever and get their entire library of movies. Or if you have a Fire TV stick, you can add the Full Moon channel. Again, I believe it's $7.99 and have access to all of their movies, and you can find them there. I don't know if they have any free trials or anything like that, but you can pay the $8. Watch a bunch of stuff for the month and then cancel it. That's how a lot of these services are set up, kind of like the Netflix and everything else. You subscribe to their service, use it for a month, watch a bunch of stuff, then cancel it. Maybe go back to it in 6 months or a year, watch some of your favorite stuff again, try some different stuff, whatever. So that's how you can easily get to that without having to go online and order the stuff and get it shipped in, whatever. You can watch this one in 5 minutes by getting on your Roku, your Fire TV, or even loading it up in your web browser through the Amazon video service. So, all right, there's that. Next one. This one's going to seem another odd one to some of you. 2001, A Space Odyssey. Now, some of you are going to say, wait a minute, you're recommending a decades-old award-winning movie from a well-known director based off a billion-selling copy sci-fi novel, well-known forever as one of the great movies, as a movie to watch while we are in quarantine. And I'm going to say yes, because many of you know of this movie, but how many of you have actually watched it? Because I think there's a key thing here. A lot of people say, oh yeah, 2001 Space Odyssey with the baby and the space and the music, yeah, the classical stuff, I heard all about that, sure. But you haven't watched it. And I find especially as it skews younger and younger and younger, there are less people watching it. As I look at people who are older, they've all watched it, younger, nobody's watched it. So I'm throwing this out there as one that you really should watch. Couple reasons. One, it holds up. For a movie that's granted set 19 years in the past as if it's 20 years in the future, and obviously we are not on space stations and flying out to Jupiter, and we don't have bases on the moon, it does hold up. It looks real. The special effects still hold on this stuff. When you're watching them in the space pods, it's almost impossible to tell. And this is without CGI. This is the era before they could throw in stuff and have some visual effects guys, run some stuff through a blender and do some particle effects and do some Premiere and After Effects and output this image. This is when everything had to be done by thinking and being really creative and really smart and really talented in how you would put this stuff together. And they created a movie that still holds up. There are some people that say, well, it's kind of slow and it gets kind of boring in parts. And sure, this was designed for film audiences of a different era. Film audiences of a different era could view things differently. They had a different, different attention spans. And it wasn't, I don't think it's necessarily a knock on everybody younger nowadays to say that you have a hard time focusing on movies and TV. It's that movies and TV have changed. The way we present them, the way we craft them has changed. It really has. So your brain, your attention spans are designed to view things differently. But to sit down and watch a movie like this, to see how it's crafted, to really deliberately think about how a movie is structured, how it's put together, how they did some of the special effects, how they did the music, how they set the scenes, how they set the tone, how they give you some of the information, because there's a lot of stuff in here they don't talk about. You see things happen and you see reactions to things that happen, but they don't ever physically say what happens. That's something that happens in modern movies a lot. Something happens, someone goes, what happened? Someone explains what happened. Sometimes they even recreate the scene that you just saw happen as they're saying what happens. This is a movie where it happens, you see it happen, it may happen in the background, it may happen a while ago, things move forward, and then they realize that something happened in the past, and it's there. They don't go back and show you again. Like, they don't go back and replay it. Things happen and they're there. The ending is controversial in this film. The book explains perfectly. If you watch this movie and then go read the book, you may end up first time watching this movie going, what? And then you go and you read the book and, oh, okay, all right, I get it. If you read the book, you're like, okay, that's cool. And then you watch the movie and you go, oh, that's an interesting way to show that. So you may get to the ending of this and just have no idea. You may start getting online and searching. WhatCulture.com recently did a video where they were talking about the endings of movies, and they were like, this ending is open to interpretation. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's blah, 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 blah. No, there's actually a whole book that explains it. It's called 2001: A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke, and it's what this movie was put together for. So, but again, seeing how things are crafted, seeing how things are put together, thinking about things differently, and I do like looking, and this is me personally, but one of the reasons why I like it is I do like looking at the past to see how people in the past would look at things to the future. And Arthur C. Clarke was one of these guys as a science fiction writer who, even though he wrote science fiction, he thought of things very pragmatically and practically. So he had things in there like video conferencing. The same way you would do it on your phone, you would do it as a Skype call, FaceTime, whatever, Google Hangouts, whatever, that type of stuff. He had that in this movie. There's a scene where the guy is sitting, Dr. Haywood Floyd is sitting on the moon base, and he calls home to his daughter. And she's standing there talking to the camera, and he's talking, to the TV set. They're obviously TV screen to screen, back and forth. And that's just how it's done. He's walking up to video screens. They're doing voice print identification. It's all automated, the way you walk through this system and the way it, knows who you are when you are coming through the airport, that type of stuff. And so some of the stuff obviously is wrong. Like I said, we don't have moon bases, we don't have space stations, that type of stuff. But some of the stuff that's in there for being made 30 years before the supposed date of 20 years ago, a lot of that technology was pretty spot on, and it's kind of freaky to think about how right he was with some of this stuff that he put together. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a great movie. Again, it was made for a different audience, and I don't mean that because they don't use any. There's no words that are going to bother people. There's no sexism or racism or anything like that. That's not what I mean by it was a different audience, different time. I just mean the pacing is different. It's a lot slower. Stanley Kubrick, if you've seen The Shining, you know that the pacing on The Shining is different from a modern horror movie, right? So if you go in with that mindset that you're watching The Shining but in space and it's science fiction instead of horror, it'll be fine for you. Okay, now this last one is a comedy. And this one, talking about movies based on books, this is one of my favorite comedies, I believe, of all time, I would dare to say, and that's Fletch. I love Fletch. Now, Fletch, some of you guys don't know, but Fletch was actually based on a series of mystery novels. They were just re-released. A bunch of these just got re-released a couple years ago. And so I do have some of the re-releases here that go with them. But Fletch itself, there's Fletch and there's Fletch Lives, which was the sequel. Kevin Smith tried to do a revival of these a couple years ago. I say a couple years ago. Could have been like 10 years ago. Couldn't get it off the ground. Just couldn't make it happen. But Fletch, the books are a lot darker than the movie. There's still fun stuff in the books based on the juxtaposition of the environment that he's in and the way he handles it and the attitude he has towards it. But it's not a comedy like the way the movie is. Now, I love the movie, even though the movies are different from the books. I love the books. They're, similar but different. The way you can look at, maybe the Marvel Cinematic Universe and your favorite Avengers comics from the 80s and 90s. Okay, they're similar but different. You like them, but they're not the same, and that's how it is with Fletch the books and with Fletch the movie. But the movie, I love it, and even the sequel, Fletch Lives, is much more of a comedy than this one. This is a comedy, is a little darker than even the second one. It's a little more in line with the books, but it's still off the rails a little bit compared to the actual books. But Chevy Chase basically is an investigative reporter, and as an investigative reporter, he's doing this story about drugs on the beach. So he's dressed up like he's just some sort of hobo hanging out on the beach. He's just there to buy drugs, and he's really trying to work his way to the source. Where are these drugs coming from? So he can write his newspaper column that he writes under an anonymous name. The thing is, he's so good at being undercover. He spends so much time on the beach. He spends so much time, sleeping under the docks and not taking showers and just basically being lazy and being a bum around everybody else who's living on the beach, that this rich guy who wants to pull off some sort of an insurance scam believes that he is just another homeless bum living on the streets, and hires Fletch to come in and, he says, murder him so his wife can get the insurance money. If he commits suicide, of course, his wife won't get the money, so he wants to pay Fletch a whole bunch of money so that he will break into the house and murder him on a night when his wife will be out doing one of her community events. And so, of course, hiring an investigative reporter who's already undercover to come and be your murderer, sets up a very interesting, complex situation. So the movie is about Fletch going undercover in a bunch of different disguises, trying to figure out what exactly is going on with this guy, who this guy really is, why is he hiring somebody to murder him, what's going on with his wife, is he really sick? And then at the same time, he also has the story about the drugs. His life is in danger with some of that stuff that's going on. That comes in with the mix and everything else. And then he finds out that maybe those two things going on aren't as different as he may have originally thought. So there may be some sort of connection between them. Again, great mystery, great comedy. It's funny. It's one of those movies that's full of a lot of actors where you're going to see him and you're going to go like, oh, I recognize that guy. You may not know his name, like Norm from Cheers. He's Fat Sam. He's one of the guys selling drugs on the beach. You'll see him several times through the movie where you're going to be like, oh, okay, of course, you know, there he is. A lot of those type of actors are in here. This preview is full screen, but it is actually available in widescreen. Again, you can buy it on Amazon. You can get it to stream through a bunch of different sources. It's a great movie. It's a lot of fun. I like it a lot. It's a movie I grew up on, again, and Fletch Lives is also a lot of fun. It's not based off of any of the novels. It's its own original story, and it's much, much more of a comedy than even the original was. Now, I've gone through those three movies and even the Millennium After the Millennium, and you may say, I'm not really sold maybe on any of those. So if maybe those aren't your type of thing and you're maybe thinking maybe there's something else, maybe some sort of like a video game franchise or movie franchise or something else you can get into, maybe I can recommend some Tron. Anybody? Anybody? Some Tron? Interested? Anybody? Hello? Hello? Some Tron?